Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Getting to Know You. I'm really excited about our guest today. It's Eunice Frieseke. Did I say that right, Eunice?
Yeah, very close. Freeze, like outside in the cold.
Okay.
And then a key, if you're
Freeze.
over in the store.
Oh, I'm never going to forget it again. Frieseke. Okay, I was close. I apologize.
You were very close.
I was nervous about that one, actually.
I'm frisky.
Yeah. I am excited for our guest because when I started doing these interviews, I think about 7 different people said to me, "You've got to interview Eunice." And I at first said, "Who's Eunice?"
I'm not sure. I hope your expectations aren't too high.
Oh, they're sky high.
Oh, pressure.
I'm just kidding. No, I'm excited to get to talk to you because so many people talk about you as having so much life and such an integral part of the parish. So anyways, we finally got to it. We had a little technical difficulties, but we are ready to go now. So we're gonna have a little interview. So Eunice, my first question, well, actually, before I ask a question, you have some news in your life. Didn't you recently get the vaccine?
Yes, I did last week, Wednesday. And I'm very thrilled about it. The second dose will be on the 16th. And I am feeling a little achy. They say that's very common.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's age or the vaccine. So I take it either way.
How were you able to get the vaccine? So many people are trying to figure it out.
I simply called Ascension, where my doctor is, and talked to the receptionist and said that I was pushing 90 and that I would like the vaccine. And she said, well, yes, we're doing it at Elmbrook Hospital. Let me check for appointment times. And she said, we have one on Wednesday at 3:30. And I said, sign me up. And that was it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's wonderful news. And I hope more and more people keep getting the vaccine. So you mentioned your age. I was curious. I was trying to think of a proper way to ask you that, but how old are you?
I'm 88.
You are 88 years old. Look at you.
Yes,
You're zooming on an iPad and doing all the stuff that the kids are doing.
I was 73, so.
Say that again?
I taught until I was 73.
Did you really? What did you teach?
I was a math teacher at MATC.
Oh, you were? Okay, cool.
Yeah. And loved it and still miss it.
I was gonna say, did you always love math?
Always. Always. I can see that in some of my grandchildren too now, so that's wonderful.
And you also love teaching?
Oh, love it. The techniques of teaching is what I absolutely thrived in.
What
learning different methods of teaching, because I love to teach people how to critically think, because so many people don't. And, it's such an asset with mathematics, obviously. And so went through a whole bunch of training to teach critical thinking and Socratic method and all that kind of good stuff. We aren't going to talk about all that, though.
No, not too much. Just a little, but I think it is kind of an art that's somewhat lost today, isn't it?
Absolutely. I would always say how the art of teaching methods is not always appreciated. And one example I would give is that MATC hires a lot of people who have absolutely no experience in teaching. Yeah. The lawyers, for instance, who are there to teach paralegals, or accountants. And so then when the state required them to take a 3-credit course in teaching techniques, which I taught. And it was very difficult for them to imagine that because they knew all of this stuff, if they said it, weren't they teaching? And I said, no, that's only talking. Teaching doesn't occur until someone has learned.
So I always think that about higher ed. You need to know something about content, but you don't really necessarily need to be a good teacher. But the experience for the student is so much better if you're a teacher.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. And the confidence it gives them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because at MATC, of course, some of my classes were to teach people who were coming back. They had lost a job or they decided to change what they were doing. And for the program they wanted to get into, they had to meet a math requirement. And so it doesn't matter how much math you've had when you're reentering, it's what you know at that time.
Yeah.
And so just to take people who knew it at one time but forgot it all, or most of it, or people who never were very good with it and now needed that extra help. And so that was, so when those light bulbs went up for me, went up and out for me, for the student, I should say, that really was the biggest thank you I could get.
That's good. You're talking to the guy that had to retake high school math my freshman year of college, because I just was not my gift.
Yeah. Well, math is kind of like something else. If you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah. What if you never found it in the first place?
Well, I knew I wanted to be a teacher from the time I was, I'm going to say 10 or 11.
Wow.
But for some reason that I don't need to go into, I had been at the Catholic school, and in 8th grade, my very best friend from the neighborhood was at the public school. And I said to my parents, I'd really like to go to that school with my friend Lee, and they couldn't believe it. And so they thought that my parents thought that I would just forget about it. And my dad very glibly said, well, if that's what you want, then you take care of it. And guess what? I did. And so in 8th grade, I went to a public school for 1 year. But the math teacher I had there, I saw for the first time a lay person, well, persons for even the other subjects, teaching. And it absolutely solidified what I wanted to do.
No kidding. So it was meant to be.
Pardon?
So it was meant to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think my parents thought I would take them up on that when they said that. But I did.
Where did you grow up?
On the east side of Milwaukee. I'm a native Milwaukeean, lived here all my life. Went to Mesmer High School.
Okay.
Where I met my husband. But then he went away to school in New Mexico, and I went to school here and got my degrees at UWM. And credits from all over. Teachers are always taking credits.
Right.
And then got married and had 7 children.
7 children.
1 girl.
One girl.
I don't say 6 boys. I say 1 girl, because then the person I'm speaking with thinks, oh my gosh, all those boys. So there was a lot of testosterone in our house.
Yeah. I bet you had a pretty healthy grocery bill.
Yeah, well, my daughter and I are perfectly content to be around men. Conversations and things that it never throw neither one of us, because I grew up with 4 older brothers too.
Yeah.
So.
How old are what is the age range of your kids now?
I lost 2 children. I lost my oldest son when he was 48.
Oh my
he
God.
would be 63 now, he's 64. And I lost a 15-year-old son to cancer in 1982. He was the second youngest. And my youngest son, Steve, is, I think, 48. So it really is from 48 and up to 63 or 4.
Wow. I'm sorry for your losses.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's hard.
And when you ask about SEBs, they were there for us through the whole things.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about that. You've been a member of SEBs when did you become a member of SEBs?
In 1966 or 67, I think.
Okay, so
it's a long time.
So quite a long time, and you were just referring to
over 50 years.
Over 50 years. Wow, that you've got a lot of stories, I'm sure, about this place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you were referring to, though, when you had your losses, SEBs was there for you. What can you describe what that was like?
Well, my younger son that died, John, in he died in 1982, was diagnosed in 1981 with a rare type of cancer. He was he had just finished his freshman year at Marquette High.
Wow.
And he had 8 weeks before diagnosis had just broken the 2-mile track record. Can you believe it? And took him to the doctor because I just thought he wasn't looking right. And he was diagnosed, and his friends at SEBS hung with him through all of that. He did go back to school as long as he could. And the CYO at that time was very active, the very active man, Jim Carney, you know him or not, he just retired from Marquette, an English teacher, but he was the counselor or whatever you would call him for the CYO. And also John's track coach. And they came together, helped him, helped us, expected absolutely nothing in return, constantly giving to us. Especially I know with prayers, because sometimes when you're going through something so shocking or whatever, you can't pray. Other people have to pray for you. Right. You want to, but your mind and your heart just can't do it at that time. And so they all came through, and the following June, he was diagnosed the 1st of August and died on June 12th. And the outpouring was wonderful. I didn't have to ask about anything. People came and said, we will do this, we will do that. And it was, I always had said, we moved to St. Sebastian neighborhood. First of all, there's a lot of big houses for those big families. And also for the school. I was very into that. At that time, there were 3 full grades of 3 full rooms of each grade, 30 kids in a class, plus St. Coletta's. Wow. Yes, big school. And I had always heard and then witnessed that whatever St. Seb's did, they did it well. And my family is a witness to that statement. They did. They were there. And about 9 months after John died, some of his St. Sebastian friends and some at Marquette, they started a run called the Frieseke 5. And it was run from St. Sebastian's. The boulevard was closed. Can you believe this? The boulevard was, the city closed the boulevard, and the run started in front of church and then ended on 54th, and prizes and medals were given. They went all the way down to Washington Park, and then Jim Carney and the track team, whatever they do to put out the course. It was five kilometers, the Frieseke 5, and we did nothing. The children, his friends and classmates, they did it all, and gave all that the money that was earned to the MAC fund, which is of course for childhood cancer. Yeah. And they did it for several years, and I'm going to say 6 or 7 years. Wow. That the road was right there. Yes. And so that was, I mean, touched our hearts unbelievably. Yeah. So that was an example of St. Seb's doing something well.
Yeah, no doubt about it. That
without anyone having to ask.
Yeah. It reminds me of a good example of how to live church.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that was in 1982 when that was kind of before we did all that talking about doing that. Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You're talking about 40 years ago when things were different.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, I am a much newer member to SEBS, but I still feel that spirit about the community.
Yes.
It was one of the things that drew Lisa and I to it. So
Yes.
it's good to hear that is, we have a long history of that.
Yes.
Eunice.
And I know people from SEBS have reached out to other families who are going through some traumatic thing and help them along. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a close commitment to it. It feels like a family. It feels like a family community.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your faith. If you could describe your faith to us.
My faith is absolute. Okay. To me, faith means belief. Okay. And it's absolute. Were there times you wonder about things? Certainly through the traumas, I never asked the question why, because I know there's no answer. It's pointless. It's pointless. But as I am living here as this older woman, I of course think about dying, not in any sad sense or whatever. And I have no doubt at all that God is there and heaven hopefully waiting, and keep doing your part, Eunice. Don't think because you're old that your mind and thoughts and your time, treasure, and talent is no more, that it's in cement. You still can do things.
Absolutely.
And so
and you do things. You're very active. To remind us how you're active in the parish.
Well, okay, we're talking pre-COVID, all that stuff.
Sure.
I do lecturing. I am been a member of the St. Sebastian choirs and all different choirs through the years. But at St. Sebastian's there's Mike's years and there's Jim Plur years and there's before Jim Plur. So I think I have the second amount of seniority in the choir. I think there's one man who may have been there 6 months before me, but and I love to do that.
Yeah,
I love to do that. I try to or have been active with the boutique, and you have never seen any cabarets, have you?
No, I have not. But Chris is on my case about that.
To know that when they need someone for comic relief, I'm the one. I've played a nun a couple times.
Okay.
One time my name was Sister Peter, Paul, and Mary, and many different things. An old crabby aunt that people were trying to kill, and the nieces were the names were Tina and Marge, and one of the signature lines that I had in all my quote career with cabaret was, "Don't cry for me, Marge and Tina."
How did you become the comic relief of
well, I always had a little bit of the ham in me in college and whatever, did some things. And Mary Vole, I don't know if you've ever met her or not, but she was very active and she was directing the cabarets. I wasn't in the first three, I believe. And she said, "Eunice, it's something you really should do. You really should do." And so took a small part in the first one, and then it just moved on. And when you don't know any better, you just keep on being funny. My dad was very quick-witted, so I kind of got a little bit of that.
Yeah.
You know.
I also think if you can't find the joy in life, you're missing out, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because who doesn't have stuff going on in their life?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and you and I have already talked about some huge challenges you've had in life, but
Yes,
it's clear to
yes.
me that you are a joyful person. Is that something you do consciously? Do you choose that?
Um, I I don't know that it's conscious. It's just part of who I am.
Hmm.
And sometimes I have to be reflective and try to understand why some people are not. I don't mean outwardly, but just, and I'm not talking about medically, uh, you know, medical issues, because I don't have any, which is a miracle.
Yeah.
Um, and I have to say that I mean, it has nothing to do with how many bad things happen in your life. For me, it's being able to give it to God. I can't tell you how many times through just the one traumatic thing that I spoke about, that I had to say, it was just beyond me. And I had to say, God, I'm giving this to you. Maybe in 15 minutes, I'll take it back. But right now, I can't anymore. I can't.
Yeah.
I'm at the apex of not frustration, sadness, everything.
Yeah.
And I can't. But I knew I had someone to give it to.
Yeah, that's so interesting to me. A lot of people with such struggles in life would just kind of get caught in their despair or get stuck in feeling bad for themselves. And you talked about your faith is absolute. Where do you think that came from?
I don't know.
Hmm.
My mother and dad were strong believers. Were they the holiest couple on the block or family? Or not at all, not at all. But they were very nice people.
Yeah.
Okay. And I often said, I still say it, that my goal in life is after I die, someone standing in front of that coffin and is saying, she was a nice person. I think nice says it all.
Yeah.
And I think if you have a goal like that, how can you be crabby? I'm just not crabby. I'm sad, and maybe it has to do with all that critical thinking. And if there's a problem, think it through.
Yeah.
Think it through and do something if you can.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't get stuck.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
And
also
I always, those words are easy to say, John,
yeah.
but they're hard to do.
Yes.
Harder for some people than others.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, absolutely. That's why I pointed out, because I don't think everybody lives life with the joy that I have witnessed you living in the short amount of time I've known you. So that's why I think you're a good example.
Well, thank you.
I also think it's refreshing to hear you talk about just wanting to be nice and having that be a goal. A lot of times today we talk about like, you know, making a statement or defending your your point of view, or kind of not letting things pass. And I tend to think like you do. I think let's share a little kindness with one another.
Yes, yes,
I think that's good.
yes. And of course, I certainly have tried, my husband and I have certainly tried to instill that in our children too.
Yeah.
And I think for the most part, I'm not saying that they are wonderful and don't have faults, but in general, I would honestly say that my children are nice. I don't know what exactly does that mean? Means something else to different people. But just nice means you're a good friend. It means you don't gossip. It means all those adjectives you want to put there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure I'm sure you've instilled that in them just by being who you are and modeling that well. Another question came to my mind I wanted to ask you, and that is, you have so much history with SEBS. What is it that you think, and I didn't pre-ask you this, so I'm putting you on the spot, but what do you think makes SEBS so special?
There has always been people who are willing to volunteer for things.
Hmm.
There always seemed to be people who were willing to call those volunteers and ask. Because that's a big no-no when people say, I'd be happy to, this, that, and the other thing, and they're not called.
Yeah.
And I think we can get better at that.
Yeah.
But through the years, I remember being called for things that I thought, I can't do that. I've never done anything like that in my life. Oh, come on along, Eunice, we'll help you out. And they did. And I know that I did the same thing with all those boys. My husband and I were very involved with Cub Scouts. I mean, for years and years and years. You can imagine when one boy graduated out of it, another came in. And I remember several of the women whom we would ask to be, what were they, den mothers or whatever? Mm-hmm. I can't do that. Come on, I'll help you along. And to this day, some people still thank me. Do you know how many friends I made because of that, Eunice? Yeah. Do you know how I got involved with something else totally different?
Yeah.
But the asking of people, you have to have people willing to ask other people if they'll help out. And if they can't at that time, that's okay. But through the years, there have been, it's a wonderful volunteer or circumstance, it says.
Yeah.
However, I see that group for some things is getting smaller and smaller. Mm-hmm. But then again, John, that may not be true. Mm. There may be just as many in areas that I have no connection with now.
Yeah.
My children are gone. I have different interests. I am no longer working. I don't, whatever. I mean, well, council kept me the times that I was on or whatever, several times, whatever. It kept me closer to some of those younger people or what they were currently doing.
Yeah. I'm here to tell you, I'm an assistant den mother now to Cub Scouts.
That's wonderful. Oh, I mean, it was a big thing at SEBS. There were actually 2 troops or whatever. I mean, and they were just very good. You talk about the little hand and something. I even wrote a couple of shows for the Cub Scouts that we performed various places. I mean, at State Fair, on the Kids from Wisconsin stages and everything. So I brought out the ham and a few of those young boys too.
You brought the fun is what you brought.
Yes.
I think you're actually, I would summarize what you just said in 2 words, engagement and invitation. There's people at SEBS that are willing to engage in what needs to be done, but maybe the predecessor to that is the invitation. And not to get over theological, but I was just thinking that reminds me of the gospel reading from last week or the week before, just Jesus calling the disciples and saying, yes, come and follow me.
Dropped everything.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that was amazing, wasn't it?
It was.
I went to Israel with the bishop and 3 other gals from St. Sebastian, 3 other women, whatever, in the fall of 19. And some of the places where those disciples were called, and just looking at the land around and the Sea of Galilee, and saying, you walked out of the boat and followed Jesus? What?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I reflected on that recently, and I thought, what trust that must have taken.
Yes.
And it begs the question, would I have had such trust? I don't know. Yeah. But I do think that that invitation is critical, and you're right. Whenever people express interest, if we as a parish are not inviting, shame on us, first of all, and second, we have to remember just to keep inviting, because I think people are comfortable where they are and they don't necessarily think, well, I could do that. Sometimes you need a little nudge. Hey everyone, I need to interrupt our previously scheduled program with an announcement from the future. After this interview with Eunice was recorded. Eunice called me in a slight panic, saying that she forgot a very important ministry and a very important group in her life, and she wanted us to know about it. In which I offered to her, well, should we record something again? And Eunice graciously said, no, thank you. She would have to get all dressed up again and do her hair, and that would just take too much time. So she asked if I could share with all of you that a really important ministry in her life is she affectionately called the Church Ladies, which is a Monday morning group that gathers for Mass, that has gathered for a really long time for morning Mass on Mondays, and who stays after to pray the Rosary together. The group also meets on Fridays to pray the Rosary and has also done some formation opportunities together. The reason I think that she felt so strongly about adding this as a contribution to her interview was because, one, the longevity of the group. There's been such commitment to the group, and it's been going for a really long time. Two, even during COVID, the group continued to meet often in Eunice's backyard to pray the Rosary together, distanced with masks during the summer. Of course, they can't do that right now, but they may do that again this summer, depending on how the world is. And three, she wanted people to know that that group existed, so that if anybody ever had the opportunity to join them, that you are welcome to do that. They're a very open group. I met with them on Fridays during Lent because I did some Advent formation with the group. And I felt incredibly welcomed to just sit in the church and pray the Rosary. It was really peaceful and just wonderful, wonderful, open group of people, lovely, faithful, committed ladies. And Eunice wanted to give all of you in the Rosary group a shout out. So shout out. Okay, that's it. Back to our regularly scheduled program.
Well, right. And to take someone under your wing, the old thing is when the president of an organization is retiring, I hope that he or she has spent that last year training the next person to come in.
Yeah.
Rather than, and that's, I think, how volunteerism grows. But it's also a different time, John. When my children were younger, whatever, I would substitute at St. Sebastian sometimes during the day because I was teaching in the evening school at that time at MATC. Mm-hmm. And but there were stay-at-home mothers. So those stay-at-home mothers, if it's coming to the playground, whatever it is, they were there.
Yeah.
Now, whatever percent of them are working.
Yeah.
It's different.
It is.
They are stretched in many ways that not that the stay-at-home mothers aren't stretched. I don't mean to say that because I know I was stretched many a time, but it's a different time. And so maybe we need to go about it a little differently, or I'm not sure what the answer is, but
well, I definitely think you're right. If COVID has given us, COVID has been so painful in so many ways, but one gift that it's given us is it's forced us to slow down a little bit. And
yes.
I do as being part of that generation where so many families have two working parents in the house. Yes. The last year has reminded us, I think, of the importance of being more present to one another and slowing down. And we still have to, both work and have to is a dramatic word. We like to work too. It gives us meaning and purpose, yes. but it is different. I think it's definitely a different world.
Absolutely. So when an older person complains that, when we were younger, we did they need to be reminded that their lives were different.
Yeah, I think I spent a lot of time as a minister of the church trying to meet people where they're at and try to not have the expectations be low, to say, join us when you can. We're always going to be here, and knowing that it's not always going to work for families.
And that's a good thing. Join us when you can. Yes, even if someone is calling you to do something, you need to give that person, or you're the caller, you need to very clearly give that person the permission, so to speak, to say, not at this time, no.
Absolutely.
May I call you again in 6 months or a year?
Yeah.
Always something to open that door.
Yes, right. And just keep having that open invitation, that welcoming invitation.
Yes.
Eunice, I have a one more kind of major question, and that is, tell me about your hopes for the future, whether it's for the world or St. Sebastian's community.
Well, of course, for St. Sebastian's, for all the churches with the COVID thing or whatever, I hope people come back to sit in the pews. Because while I do try to get to the Mass on Sunday 3 out of 4 times, because I feel very safe.
Yeah.
And I'm try to convince some older people that it is very safe, that's not an issue. It shouldn't be an issue, or I can ease your mind. Yes, do the pews, because you hear something, and it's for community. Yeah. I want to say amazed, maybe that's not the right word, that there are people on various committees doing wonderful work, but you don't see them in church.
Yeah.
I don't get it. Is what you're working on something that you think church or Jesus or God has nothing to do with, or doesn't have a part in that you can do that without? I don't think so.
Yeah.
I'm only giving my opinion. I understand. Yes, people have interest in those things, and I think SEBS offers quite a variety of issues that people would be should be interested in. And I'm thrilled that they're on all those committees, because all those meetings, I don't like all those meetings anymore. That's why I like the new group, the Friends for Life, that the deacons started. I like being part of that because we're doing Zoom meetings and I don't have to get dressed up, but I'm sure that will change. But for those working mothers, I always think, and whatever the percent of them is, 70%, whatever, that they are coming to those meetings at night, which I'm sure takes away time from their family. Yeah. But they could have time with their family on Sunday morning or evening at church.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It wouldn't be taking time away from them like the committee meeting does.
Yeah, that's true.
That's that critical thinking I've been telling you about. When you're older, retired, you think about different things and how they might work.
Yeah,
especially for things that you're not doing.
Yes, that's right. But you are right. I mean, there are things that we can do with our families. Like,
yes.
For instance, having meals together and going to Mass together. That I agree with you. I hope that people come back to Mass. I think they will, but it's just a weird time right now, and
it is. But this, this didn't just didn't happen with COVID, and it's all over. I mean, I'm an extensive traveler. I've traveled many places, and all 50 states plus, I don't know, 40 countries, something like whatever.
Really?
But yes. But it's true all over the world. The countries that we would say are not necessarily third world, but behind the many other countries, or parts of those countries where those people are behind the world, they are more into going to church and thanking God for the little they have. Mm-hmm. And for those of us who have so much, how can we?
I have a theory about that. Here's my critical thinking. I always think when someone has so little and they have such a faith in God, it's because they have less distractions between them and God.
That's true.
Yeah.
True.
We turn on our TV and we have 900 channels, and we we have all these apps on our phone, and
I was going to say, and the phone is vibrating in your pocket while you're watching these 1,000 channels of
yes,
TV.
yes, exactly. In fact, there's an expression we have in my house. It's called dual screening. It's when you are on your phone and watching TV at the same time.
Oh, I know. It's silly.
Yeah.
But I mean, just think how habitual it is.
Mm-hmm.
How would you feel if you were totally cut off from all of that and had to still do your job and take care of your children and all of those things, of how difficult that would be? It would be amazing. My whole family, I mean, I have grandchildren, all over the United States, even in Amsterdam and whatever. And they'll call up and have a chat with grandma. And for the first 5 minutes, I keep saying, that's amazing. Just think, he's in Amsterdam or whatever.
Yeah.
We don't lose touch.
No, and it's a great curse and a great blessing, isn't it? The technology.
Yeah, yeah.
We're
So I think the future of the church, for the whole world, I am concerned about the practice of religion. The practice. I don't know that people don't believe, but if you're not there to hear scripture and to hear a homily or to whatever, how can you take that belief beyond just the words, oh, I believe in God? It's got to be more than that. Yeah. And I don't think that kind of belief is as makes you feel good when something goes wrong. Where do you turn?
Yeah.
Where do you turn?
My I share this a lot when I'm teaching like RCA and stuff, but I always I share the story that my mom shared, which was when my grandfather died and my mom was broken that her father had passed away. She said she went into his funeral mass and she said she just couldn't bear it anymore, and she just kind of, like you said, kind of gave it back to God. And she said it was that ritual carried her in that moment. And she said, I realized that it was like I was practicing my whole life for this moment where I had put in my time for when I really needed to be carried, that I was able to let that happen.
Yes. Yeah, the old footprints thing.
Yeah.
It really is. But what a wonderful feeling for people who know that God will do that if you ask, and that God will not change things, not necessarily change them, but will let you get through. Just an example of that, from years back after John died, then I volunteered at Children's Hospital a lot in the hot ward, so to speak. And one of the nurses, who was a psychologist and whatever, we sat and talked one day for a long time, and she said, Eunice, when a couple is divorced and they're losing a child, but they have a firm belief in God, she said, I can help them. She said, I asked God to help me help them, and I can do that. But she said, there are so many times, Eunice, when it was happening to a happy married couple who did not believe in anything. And she said, Eunice, I have no place to go to help them. I have no place to go. Yeah. She said, they have each other. And I try to do it that way, but she said it's a totally different ballgame.
Yeah.
That's something. So
Well, because
oh.
our religion helps us connect to something that's bigger than us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Well, it's stories. I don't know if it's with wisdom, but
I think it is. I think it is. Well, again, I will say thank you for sharing the blessings of your wisdom and the blessings that you are to the community of St. Sebastian's.
And although I moved away out of the big house, I'm not that far away, and I wouldn't think of going to another parish. It's home.
Yeah,
it's home.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you talking with me today.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
Thank you.
Take care.